Hello again, witchy people. I keep looking over. I'm trying to make sure the cat doesn't interfere. This is the 10th time I have tried to record this. So, I'm back for another talk about baneful herbs, and tonight it's holly. Now, I could talk for hours upon hours about holly. It is one of those plants that has a lot of mythology and history and legend and folklore attached to it. So I'm going to try and keep it quite basic and quite short and not go into too much detail. So I'm not going to tell you about where it grows, because I am going to be talking about mostly English holly, which is native to England and some parts of Europe, Northern Europe. Although I think there are over 400 different species of holly. But I should be talking about typically English holly, which is part of the Ilex family. So first of all, I'm going to start off by saying that only the female has berries. So if you've got a holly tree or a holly bush and it has berries, then it's a female tree. And because it is the female tree that specifically produces these red berries, we use these red berries as a substitution or a representation of menstrual blood in some magic. But like I said, rather than any other red berry, we use the holly berry because we know it comes from a female tree. Okay, so going on to sort of like the legend and the myths and such like, there are lots of sort of like little bits about holly, and a lot of people think they're connected with Christmas, and there's a lot of opposing things. I mean, for the main part, it used to be considered unlucky to bring holly into the home before Christmas Eve, and of course this was a Christmas thing. And so you just couldn't bring it in before Christmas Eve, and once you finished with the holly, you would burn it at Imbolc, but save a sprig. You could keep a sprig inside the house until Imbolc, and then you had to take it outside and hang it outside the house for protection. Now, there's also another myth was that holly was immune to lightning. It could not be struck by lightning. So during a thunderstorm or a lightning storm, you would run under the nearest holly tree for protection. I am not advocating this during a storm. Please don't. I don't want to be responsible for anyone being struck by lightning. But that was the myth. Now, this is kind of going to go all over the place because, like I said, there's such a lot. So I'm going to sort of like cherry pick things that I can remember at times. I know that not only the berries are poisonous, but the sap. People don't realise the sap is quite toxic as well. It can cause all sorts. It will make you sick. It can cause severe vomiting, cramps, and has been known to cause coma. Apparently, I don't know if that's true or not. It can cause kidney damage as well. But bearing all that in mind, some species of holly have been used medicinally. There is the Native Americans used Ilex, some form of holly, but they used to brew it up into a tea and use it as a stimulant. Ilex opica, something like that. They used it as a stimulant. In pre-Victorian times, before Queen Victoria and Prince Albert made the fir tree, the Christmas tree, popular at Christmas, when you talked about a Christmas tree, you were referring directly to the holly. That was the representation of a Christmas tree. And most people know of the Christmas carol, the holly and the ivy. What they don't know is it's actually this Christian song, the holly and the ivy. There are direct references from that song to a pre-Christian pagan celebration And this celebration, it was basically, you'd pick a boy from the village and he would dress up as Holly, and you'd pick a girl from the village and she would dress up as Ivy. Some people say that it used to be the tallest girl or the tallest boy from the village. And obviously that's because holly is considered, I always think it's funny that holly berries are female from a female tree, but holly is considered masculine and the ivy is considered like the feminine side. But they used to dress up in these costumes and wreathed in holly and ivy and do a dance and a celebration around the village. And this was to help bring nature the strength to get through these dark and short days and get it through the darkest part of the year, and to ensure that nature re-emerged fruitful and gave them fertility, especially in their farm stock over the following year. Now, holly is also very closely associated with the fae, and it was brought, sprigs of holly were brought into the home, and this is what I'm saying about opposing myths and such, like, because one says it's unlucky to bring it into the home, another one says, oh, you bring holly into the home, but you bring holly into the home, and this comes from a druid folklore, druidic folklore. But yeah, you brought holly into the home, and with the holly would come the fairies, and that would either give you protection from evil fairies and evil entities and those that wanted to do you harm, against any mean mean-spirited evil entity or fairy. But it also gave shelter to the fairies and made sure that it brought peace to the home. If you could live in peace with the fairies, you could live in peace with anything. That was the connotations of it. And also, when you brought holly into the home, in English folklore, would determine who would rule the household over the following year. And it was determined by how many prickly leaves there were. Now, the prickly leaves represented the female aspect. So if the bough of holly that you brought into your home had lots of prickly leaves, then the woman would rule the home for the following year. If it had more smoother edged leaves, then the husband would rule the home for the following year. I'm not too sure whether I agree with associating women with being prickly. It's quite mean. So, in Celtic mythology, as many of you will know, the Holly King reigned over the first half of the year, from the summer through to the winter solstice, when the Oak King would defeat the Holly King and preside over his half of the year until the following solstice, and then it would be repeated all over again. Now, at Yuletide, mummers would kind of play out this battle between these two aspects of the nature god. And one way they did this was to represent the Holly King by dressing a giant man, the tallest man, the biggest man in the village. They dress him up in all this wreaths and boughs of holly, and he would be, like I said, a giant man, and his club would be made from a holly bush, a whole bush of holly. And what's quite interesting about this whole thing that the mummers used to do was that this may be where the Green Knight from Arthurian legend derived from. So my chair's getting a wee bit uncomfy. So obviously holly isn't just a Yuletide tree. It was found to have very protective qualities, and to cut down a holly tree or even a holly bush was to strip away those protective qualities and would cause incredible bad luck to the person who decided to cut down the tree or the bush. Now it's okay to coppice back and cut twigs off of the holly, and in fact these twigs were used for quite a few different purposes, but they used to use it decoratively for marquetry and also to make chess pieces, because the wood was incredibly dense but very, very white. It was very, very pretty. It's also said that holly had this, I think it derived from the fact that the use of holly, hedges were used to control where animals were. You controlled the animals by holly hedging. So it came about, this whole folklore and myth, that holly could be used for powers of control. So it was used to make whips. Whips. The handles of whips and the short whips for both ploughmen and horse-drawn carriages. Ploughmen obviously had the carriage, so it was used for control. It was also used to predict the weather. This is an old wives' tale from way back. Basically, you knew how harsh your winter would be by the amount of berries on your holly tree. The more berries, the more harsh winter would become. And this was because nature was providing birds all that extra food they'd need in the cold. So more berries, more cold. Druids, and this is where the whole fairy thing comes along as well. Now, druids did have, they were known to decorate their homes in winter with holly, and when they bring the holly in, it was to bring in the sylvan spirits, so that's the forest and the pastoral spirits, to provide them with shelter and to know that they are revered and wanted and honoured, and you wanted to look after them, and in return they would give you protection and bring peace in the home. Okay. Hello, Coco. I'm not recording this again. Okay, so what else can I say? Holly, magically, it's ruled by Mars and Saturn. It's considered for the most part to be masculine in gender, and its element is fire. Now, deities, there are quite a few, but the main one really considered to be associated with holly more than anything else is Thor, and that's because of the whole lightning thing, I think. So she's not going to let me do this peacefully, you know. Okay, so it's mostly medically, it was mostly the leaves that were used, and they'd be brewed into a tea to treat measles, and also made with the bark made into poultices to treat dislocated joints and broken bones. She hasn't been well, you'll have to forgive her. She's been a poorly little cat, haven't you, baby? Yes. So there. Okay. Yes. Okay, magically, bear in mind as well that, like I said, I'll say it again, the berries and the sap are toxic. Please don't move the camera again, Coco. Come on, you. Come on. Hey. Oh. Okay, so finished. Good. Where were we? Right. We've got magically for spell working. Oh. That's better. It is the herb, or the plant if you like, for protection. Protection against lightning, evil spirits, protection against poison. It was said that if you threw, so I've lost my slipper now. if you're in the forest and you threw holly leaves onto the forest floor, it would help subdue the wild beasts and stop them attacking you. It represents, holly itself is about, represents kind of like the giving of or sacrificing of something to gain something back that is worth more or is better than what you gave up. Holly is also used magically to open the heart for forgiveness and understanding, not just for you but for others too. So it's very good for that sort of like if there are problems to sort out two halves. Coco, I've got cat hair in my mouth. It's said that you can put holly leaves under the head of the bed to give you prophetic dreams, to make your dreams come true. Also magically it symbolises battle, and this is because the ancient Celts used holly to make the shafts of their spears, but also because of that connection with the ancient Celts and battle. It also represented not just knowing thine enemy, but respecting your opponent, and being open and truthful. And funnily enough, that also goes into when people research their coat of arms heraldry. If there's holly, it represents truth. Okay, so what else can you use holly for? You can use it in consecration spells. Spells for material gain, specifically material gain. Physical revenge is very good for revenge spells. Dream magic, as I said, you can place that underneath the head of the bed. It's very good for dreams, and also for luck. So it's used in any spell workings or ritual sort of thing relating to death and rebirth, and that obviously is from the Oak King and the Holly King. Any seasonal mysteries like that, and it's also used for any fire festival, because holly wood burns very, very hot, so it's very good for any fire festival. It's also very, very good for wand making, especially if you use the ones to banish rather than to bring things to you, to send them away. So it's really good for banishing unwanted entities and spirits. And in the way that it's used to control, it has the element of control when you, for ploughmen and horse-drawn carriages. It's also, if you invoke spirits, you use a holly wand to control them. So you use wand for control and banishment. So there you go. There is probably a ton of stuff more that I could tell you about holly. But that's kind of, in a nutshell, a very simplified version. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll be back soon with ivy, which will probably be just as long. I'd also like to do dicentra, bleeding heart, because it's one of my favourite flowers, and I'd like to include that because it is actually quite baneful. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling on. Thank you for watching, witchy people. I will be back very soon. Thank you. Bye for now.